news is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Cyril B. Ramney Tertola Pier Park, HOV Medical, and Digicel. Sign up for Digicel Plus Home Light bundles, faster internet, movies, and sports.
He's always liking my post. And he's starting to feel special about it, not realizing that it's now going to the stage now of manipulation and coercion. Many years ago, probably you were just teaching the child, but not now. You're not just teaching the child. There are several mental health issues that children are walking through on a daily basis that you also have to be able to navigate. So you start to see certain changes, and etc. But there are persons too who also prey on those mental health issues. Before you could even get to them to talk to them about certain things, they're finding the information that they need because the information is available. Unfortunately, a whole lot of the information is flawed. It is error. And they're hearing it from people who, in many cases, they're social media influencers and things like that. They're hearing them from those persons and they're hearing it the wrong way. Parents, we need to get ahead of time and we need to build relationship. If most parents built relationships with their children, several of the problems that the schools are facing, they wouldn't face today.
Of the many issues affecting Virgin Islands youths is that of bullying, a situation that is eating away at the territory.
Data collected from secondary schools across this territory for the period January to April 2025 reveals that over 80% of conflicts that occur within school walls have their origins in the digital space.
So in 2023, we have 19 cases which are under investigations. Some of them are where children have already been charged. In 2024, we saw 14 of the same cases, and in 2025 so far, 5 cases have been laid so far to the police. So in grand total for the last 3 years, we have seen 38 cases.
The bedrock of the Virgin Islands is its deeply rooted Christian fabric, and they are called upon to help in many ways. The New Testament Church of God International Worship Center, Boggers Bay, is not asleep on their social responsibilities.
The church and all of us here today are playing a critical role in the community's awareness to tackle these unwanted social challenges.
Friday, May 30, in the church's hall were key stakeholders for a child protection training. The topic? Bullying. Cyberbullying, that is. Featuring the United Nations Children's Fund, the UNICEF Trainer of Trainers, Dr. Kenroy Burke, Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Orlandette Crabb, Royal Virgin Islands Police Force Inspector Kendall Bob, and the New Testament Church of God International Worship Center Education Director, Minister Emerald Pemberton. Here are extracts of that training.
The advancement of digital technology not only creates new developments in social media, messaging platforms, gaming platforms, and mobile phones, but they are evolving, associating unwanted behaviors as well. Young people are at a risk for deviant behaviors such as staring and angering others or shaming, spreading lies, posting embarrassing pictures of someone on social media, sending hurtful or threatening messages are among some of the common traits used to humiliate others. According to one of UNESCO's leading advocates on child protection, Ford, he said, and I quote, 30 years after the adoption of the Convention on the rights of the child and the creation of the World Wide Web, it is time for governments, families, academia, and other private sectors to put children and young people at the center of digital policies by protecting them from the worst the internet has to offer and expanding access to its best. We can each help tip the balance for good. On this backdrop of this statement, there is an urgent call for child protection authorities and advocates of the BVI to implement the necessary policies and guidelines to address these current issues. For this reason, the Church and all of us here today are playing a critical role in the community's awareness to tackle these unwanted social challenges.
Today's event is a vital act of service to our community. In this digital age, where our students are increasingly immersed in online spaces, the risks they face are growing. The conversation we are having today is urgent and necessary. Cyberbullying is a silent but deeply damaging form of abuse. Unlike traditional bullying, cyberbullying follows our children home. It enters into their bedrooms, their private thoughts and moments, and their most vulnerable spaces through the very devices that we have come to rely on for learning and access to opportunity. Its impacts are profound: increased anxiety and depression, decreased self-confidence and esteem, self-doubt and embarrassment, withdrawal from friends and school, academic decline, self-harm, and tragically, in some cases, suicidal ideations. Data collected from secondary schools across this territory for the period January to April 2025 reveals that over 80% of conflicts that occur within school walls have their origins in the digital space, whether through social media exchanges, group chats, direct messages, or other online interactions. These are all driving real-world tensions and violence among our youth. It is clear that what happens online doesn't stay online. It directly impacts classroom culture, student relationships, and ultimately school safety. As educators and adults who care for young people, we cannot afford to ignore this crisis. Our responsibility is not only to protect the physical safety of our students, but to safeguard their emotional and psychological well-being in both real and virtual spaces. This requires coordinated action, such as this session today, from schools, churches, homes, government, and civic institutions. Today's training serves as a critical reminder. Cyberbullying is not simply a technological issue, it is a child protection issue. It requires that we are proactive, informed, and compassionate in our responses. Let us leave here not only with information, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Let us be vigilant in monitoring online behavior, intentional in cultivating digital responsibility, and bold in confronting abuse wherever it may arise.
Bullying is a serious issue that continues to affect young people, particularly school-age children. One I want to speak more about today is the online cyberbullying. It is a rapid growing and particularly concerning form of bullying, which I will now expand on. So cyberbullying is any form of bullying conducted through electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, tablets, or gaming consoles. It often takes place on social media platforms and can include hurtful or threatening messages, sexual images, images of weapons, sexual content, or degrading memes. Cyberbullying has become more widespread because it happens anywhere, at any time. So we can see children being bullied online by someone residing in Trinidad, Barbados, the UK, or anywhere. So there's no specific place, no specific time when it comes to cyberbullying. And that is a very concern for us as law enforcement to be able to control, because it is not as the same as the physical bullying that we see at the school on a daily basis. It invades a child's personal space, affecting their social life, both online and offline, because it is not confined to school grounds or hours. It poses unique challenges for parents, educators, and law enforcement. Let me be clear. Currently, there are no specific laws in the British Virgin Islands that directly governs bullying or cyberbullying of children. However, children involved in such acts may find themselves on the wrong side of the law. They could face criminal charges under our criminal code or the Computer Misuse or Cybercrime Act. These legislations were never intended to target children, but in the absence of more suitable legal provisions, it may be used when matters become severely serious. This is not an ideal solution. However, we do our best on a daily basis to cope with what is happening with our children. I will share some statistics of what we have seen for the past 3 years of cases of online or cyberbullying of our children. And these forms child sexual exploitation or online grooming, cyberbullying threats, online blackmailing through sextortion, possession of child sexual exploitation materials. So in 2023, we have 19 cases which are under investigations. Some of them are where children have already been charged. In 2024, we saw 14 of the same cases, and in 2025 so far, 5 cases have been laid so far to the police. So in grand total for the last 3 years, we have seen 38 cases. So again, as I reiterate that we faces a major challenges due to limited resources, personally to effectively address cyberbullying and other cases. Once harmful messages or images is shared, the damage is already done, and removing it from social media can be very difficult as there are no legal control over these platforms. So the social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, and you know most of them, we in the BVI do not have any control over such platform to sometimes ask them to take down such images. We sometimes rely on our international partners to assist, the FBI or the Scotland Yard unit from the UK. The response of the Royal Virgin Islands Police stands in solidarity with other key stakeholders, including the Ministry of Education, Health and Social Services, to promote a multi-agency approach to tackle cyberbullying. The question may ask, why might someone bully the other? Sometimes, based on our conversations with these young people, they are considered to be peer pressure, experience bullying themselves, prejudice held against certain persons or group of people, which we sometimes refer to as hate crime, low esteem or low self-esteem, used to a culture of bullying and aggression, fear of missing out, problems at home which they're experiencing, such as domestic violence and all other forms of violence within their home.
I want to commend the agencies that are here. And I was able to report on the last training. Even as I was sitting there, I was sharing some information with one of my colleagues from UNICEF who got me into this in the first place. And it is commendable, the effort that I'm going to speak from the BVI perspective, because I know that there may be a couple persons from the US VA here, but for sure from the BVI perspective, it is commendable the efforts that you are making at making your territory a safer place for our children. And I think you need to be commended for that. You can put your hands together for that. Because trust me, as I do training, sometimes you wonder, where is the assistance that our children need? So I want to share some things with you, and I'm going to ask you to take out something that you can start to write. As was said earlier, cyberbullying is indeed a challenge. It is indeed a challenge. And the last report that was done, and let me try to get it up and running here. The last report that was done, the last draft summary, views on corporal punishment, sexual abuse, and juvenile offending across 8 Caribbean countries. And in the BVI, these are the statistics that would have been found. They did some stats on corporal punishment. I shared some of those the last time that I was here. They did some, again, on child sexual abuse. You got more updated information. And they also took the opportunity to do some research on cyberbullying. And listen to what the research is saying. The research is saying, and these are the views of age of consent, etc. The research is saying around a third, 32% of respondents said that personally they knew of a child who had been subjected to cyberbullying. That's a third of your the population. And 82% of respondents considered cyberbullying, which may have a sexual component, to be a problem. So they're believing that it's a problem. 44% say that it's a major one. Another third personally knew of a case of cyberbullying. Again, higher than the average of 21%. 6 in 10 believe that the police could investigate and charge someone. Perceptions again. 6 out of 10. 60% persons say that they believe the police actually know who's responsible and can investigate and charge someone. While a further 27% argue that the police could investigate and charge but would not. Everybody's with me? Perceptions. Perceptions. And here we are hearing that it is extremely difficult to do since the laws are restrictive. While it shares similarities with cyberbullying, cyber abuse tends to be more severe. It is a lot more intense because it is very intentional. It is persistent, and it often navigates around the whole concept of power and control. So the abuser's focus is to control, to take control of whom the victim, whatever the nature of the abuse is. I want to take control of the victim. It involves also a pattern of abusive behaviors online that can escalate over time. So it may start just at a comment that was made on a post. I don't know how many of you have ever seen this. A comment that was made on a post. And think about this too from the perspective of adults too. Some adults are abused online. I think we know that we are talking primarily about children, but there are adults that are abused. So you put probably a political view right there online, something that you believe. And right under somebody starts to go at you. So they make a statement and you respond. And 2 weeks later, y'all are still back and forthing. Because this person isn't letting up, then they start to sound angry, and their tone, you can tell some of the messages begin to sound angry, and it sounds almost violent, like if they see you somewhere, they'll just knock you over. And you start to feel uncomfortable because you know when it has crossed a line. Everybody knows that. The key is knowing when it has crossed a line. Knowing when this thing that started innocently, this thing that seemed as though it was okay, is now a little further, and the aim is now to name and shame and do all kind of different things to make you look less of a person, and before you know it, you are caught in an abusive, listen to this word, relationship. So we think that only relationships between a husband and wife or man, partners, but it is a relationship. Why is it a relationship? Because the two of you are relating to each other, and sometimes it starts very innocently. Recently I found out that there are several children who are actually creating chats in school. I don't know if it is prevalent here. They create chats outside of. So yes, there are parent chats, and those parent chats serve the purpose. Sometimes I think that parents want to use those chats to be abusive. So many times it ends up not being a chat, but just a broadcast, because teachers obviously try to manage that experience. But what you find is, unfortunately, in these chats, there's a whole lot that's happening, and we have absolutely no idea what's taking place. So we have situations where children are being abused on a continuous basis. They are at school and they're being abused and bullied, bullied right there in front of them. They're being abused. But when they go home, the abuse continues right there online in a WhatsApp chat. They're not saying anything to their parents. They're not saying anything to their teachers. They're trying to deal with it on their own. They come to school. They're very aggressive. They seem as though they're not focused in class. They always seem as though they're in some sort of argument with another child. But we have absolutely no idea that the real action is happening here. Everybody's with me? The real action is happening here. And unfortunately, many of those children are laboring under it because they don't know what to do. They don't have any responses. I don't think that there are too many parents that I've met in my lifetime that have taken the time to teach their children how to deal with bullying. I don't think so. I tried today to imagine how many parents have actually seen. I know one guy for sure told his son that anytime someone tries to bully you, lock your two fingers and poke them in the eyes.
That sounds like you.
That was his advice. But I don't know how many of you have, as parents, have ever actually sat down and intentionally taught your children how to deal with any type of abuse or any type of bullying. Yeah. You may have, because you're exposed to the information and it has really caught your attention and you think you need to do something preventative. But generally it isn't the case, because most parents don't even consider it as an issue until, unfortunately, it is an issue. You with me? So prevention, we say, is better than cure. But unfortunately, many times when we've actually gotten we've been exposed to this, let me say it this way. Unfortunately, it's just coming down to the school to sit in a meeting with the principal to have a discussion about your child's behavior. Your child's behavior that unfortunately you don't see at home. Because it's not happening at home, it's happening right there in the school. And when it happens at home, it's online, so they're not sharing those things with you, because remember, they don't want you to get into their online experience. Most children would rather you not get involved in what's happening on their cell phones. Most children. So that's the harrowing part of it. So what I've noted is a few characteristics of this abuse. And this is what will make it abuse, really. Other than that, you have to pull back and wonder exactly what is the dynamic. But this is what makes it abuse. It's persistent harassment. Persistent harassment. It's often sustained efforts to torment the victim. Repeated messages every single where they go. And as I say to you, it transitions from the face-to-face bullying to the online platform, whatever that online platform is. If you only use WhatsApp, your children are very likely to call you an old head because you think that that's the only place that conversations are taking place. But conversations are taking place in Snapchat. Conversations are taking place in Discord. You've heard about that? There are children with Twitter accounts. X. So conversation is taking place in X. Conversations are taking place in all of these places that you have absolutely no idea about. But the only thing you know is WhatsApp, and you went to the phone, you checked the phone, and you didn't see anything in WhatsApp. Some of you are a little embarrassed now to even ask me, why those things you're talking about? Please take some time to actually go into your app store on your phone and check them out, and you'll see that there are several different apps that can be used, social media apps that can be used, and the children are using them because, sorry to say sometimes, but those who create them are irresponsible enough to create greater privacies on them, etc., than even the WhatsApp. It is much easier to hack into a WhatsApp account than it is to hack into several of the other accounts. So they're using them to their own benefit, but unfortunately also to their own demise. And they're in WhatsApp chats and Twitter chats and all these different things that are, let me tell you this, they're international. They're chatting with children all across, at least they think they're children. And they're chatting with children all across the nations of the world. They're involved in conversations. The other day I was talking to my son, and my son was telling me about his friend that is in St. Lucia. I had no idea he had a friend that was in St. Lucia, but he's a swimmer. So he met the guy when he was in St. Lucia, and they talk and things like that about swimming. And when they go to swimming, then the international meets, they see each other and they say, "Oh, you doing?" Knocking and all these different things. And I'm saying to myself, how did he even know him? Because they no longer need to write a letter to a pen pal. Some of us are still stuck there. But I never saw him ask me for a stamp. They don't need stamps anymore. You with me? They have all the exposure that they can have to anybody across the world. But here's the challenge. Anybody across the world also has all the exposure that they need to get to them. Have you ever wondered how so many free apps survive? There's an underworld to free apps, you know that? And information shares and those kind of things. So all those things are happening in their world, and we need to be able to navigate it. Because if we don't understand it, we too will struggle with being able to assist them. So this is where the greatest challenge is. So while it shares a lot of similarities with cyberbullying, abuse tends to be more severe, persistent, and often includes elements, I said earlier, of what? Power and control. So there's a whole lot of power and control taking place there. I think I did not flip when I was starting to talk to you about the characteristics. So persistent in harassment, power and control, mention that again. Unlike just bullying, there are a whole set of different tactics now that are used for the abuse, dominating the victim. Before you know it, the person is in full brainwash mode. That child is in full brainwash mode. In fact, sometimes I've actually seen cases where they are now fighting their parents and family to maintain the relationship with this person. They don't see anything that the person is doing as harmful in any way. But a lot of this, the backstory to this is a lot of grooming also that takes place. So they build a wonderful relationship. It starts innocently, and they build a wonderful relationship online. In fact, I want to suggest this to you, that some of you started talking to someone. You know what I mean when I say talking to someone, getting into a relationship just from sitting and messaging. And after a day, suddenly you were in love. No need for confession. Imagine then what is going to happen to that child who feels as though now they're getting all this attention, feeling good about the attention that they're getting, feeling good about all the nice things that are being said, and in many cases actually believing that the person may very well be their age. I want to say this to you. Abuse happens within age groups too. So don't be fooled. In classes, it could be very abusive. But many times it's someone who is behind the profile. Might be an adult that is behind the profile and is creating an abusive relationship that is working for their benefit. And they're grooming them to the place where before you know it, they will probably go and meet this person. It's probably going to get there. The more they do it, the more it's going to possibly get there. Very seldom will you find someone online chatting with someone who is not actually interested in meeting the person. Many times I travel and there are persons who are on Facebook with me and I notice persons on Facebook. But then I turn up somewhere and the person says, "Hi, I'm your Facebook friend." And I'm like, "Oh yeah. What's your name again?" Not that I'm, totally clueless to every single one, but when you have a couple thousand people online as Facebook friends, it is very, very unlikely that you're going to be able to recognize that person. So think about it. If this person recognizes me, of all those people that are my friends, I have to start to feel special. Not so? Yeah. He's always liking my posts. And you're starting to feel special about it, not realizing that it's now going to the stage now of manipulation and coercion. So they're going to start to get manipulative and try their very best to get into your space. They're going to coerce you to do certain things. The abuser may use that manipulation to achieve certain outcomes, things that they want. Things that they want. They will watch the post. They will check everything about you. They will see your vulnerabilities. They may say to you, "I saw today how so-and-so dealt with you. I would never do that." Or "I saw how this person spoke to you. I would never speak to you that way." And immediately they tap into the vulnerabilities. They study. It is like those professional burglars who sit and they watch every move of the businessman. How he drops off, when he drops off, they're watching every single move so that they can then pounce on the right occasion. It's the same thing that's happening right there in cyberspace. Now, the thing about the abuse too is that there's an emotional and psychological harm that starts to take place. Its aim is to cause significant emotional distress or trauma. That's the abuse, leading to feelings of fear, anxiety, and depression. This type of abuse can have lasting effects on the victim's mental health. Something that we are currently faced with as educators, we're faced with as persons who are in any kind of ministry dealing with children, is that several of our children have mental health issues that they're battling. You're aware of that? You're no longer just, quote unquote, teaching the child. Many years ago, probably you were just teaching the child, but no, you're not just teaching the child. There are several mental health issues that children are walking through on a daily basis that you also have to be able to navigate. So you start to see certain changes, etc. But there are persons too who also prey on those mental health issues. You with me? They're preying on those mental health issues because it is beneficial to them. Now, it is amazing sometimes how evil works, because people are going to sit down and do this thing on a daily, study their behaviors, check them out, make sure that they know exactly what they're battling with, and then prey on it. Work at making sure that they can tap into it. Remember, it's abusive. I like to define abuse as abnormal use of something. So from the time it becomes abnormal use, it's abuse. And that's exactly what they're doing. Then there's also the aspect of exploitation. Cyber abusers may engage in online exploitation, such as financial scams and those kind of things. Those things are taking place. So take note, we haven't spoken anything really sexual as yet, because sometimes that's where our minds are, just in the sexual realm. But cyber abuse can also be someone who has set up an entire website just to rob people, just to take your finances. They do all kind of different scams, and they're just trying their very best to rob you, to take all the finances that you have. All of that is abuse. You with me? All that is abuse. Let me pause to say sometimes it is sad that the laws have not yet caught up, right? Because there are some things that we could probably do a whole lot better in prevention. Sometimes I believe the laws are downstream, but the laws are downstream, and yet they have not been able to do sometimes the job that you need, because there will always be a select few who can beat the system. But if they beat the system upstream, they shouldn't be able to beat the system downstream and walk away scot-free. You agree? Unfortunately, that happens sometimes. Sensitization is effective at every single level. You see, we live in a culture that we believed, we were taught this: if you talk about it, it will become a problem. So many parents avoided certain conversations, what we call the birds and the bees. That's how that came up, because nobody really wanted to call it what it was. And they avoided certain things so that they would not have to face it, because they believed that if they talked about it, it would open up curiosity, and then suddenly children would get involved. I want to suggest this to you, that children will know about it whether you talk about it or not. Everybody's with me? So it is usually best for them to know about it in the right atmosphere. And the school setting is by far the best atmosphere. Outside of the home and church, I can't think of another institution that we would want to do something like this in. I believe this is critical. Children need to know about it. But I think that it might very well be a part of things like HFLE training and those kind of things. What are we missing? I want to sum it up like this: we're missing relationship. We're missing relationship because we felt in the past that we should never ever build that type of relationship with our children. They should see us as the disciplinarians. They should see us as the boss in their household. But when you build a proper relationship with your child, they will still know who's in charge. You with me? They'll still know. Last night I was on the platform, and as soon as I put down the microphone, I finished hearing, and I went and I took the microphone in. As soon as I put down the microphone, I saw a message come up, and it was my son saying, "Hey buddy, how are things going?"
Hey buddy.
Hey buddy, how are things going? You with me? Yes. He was just at home, and he thought about his dad, knowing his dad is overseas, and he just messaged me because we are working at building a relationship so that it should be comfortable at some point in time. Even if slightly awkward, it should be comfortable for him to be able to talk to me about certain issues. Because he knows now that we're buddies. He knows that I'm not going to go out there and tell everybody the world what's happening with him. And he knows that we can talk. Everybody's with me? You don't wait until he becomes a man to have that type of relationship and walk around and say, "Man, my son's very tight." You do that from the time they're young, so that as they grow up, they're able to share certain things with you. So we are now in a different space where I was talking to him the other day, and he said, "But you know that I never learned about the birds and the bees with you. I did that online. I found all my information online." And that is the truth. Before you could even get to them to talk to them about certain things, they're finding the information that they need because the information is available. Unfortunately, a whole lot of the information is flawed. It is error. And they're hearing it from people who, in many cases, they're social media influencers and things like that. They're hearing them from those persons, and they're hearing it the wrong way. Parents, we need to get ahead of time and we need to build relationship. If most parents built relationships with their children, several of the problems that the schools are facing, they wouldn't face today.
We know that where you choose to bank matters, and it is your vote on what your funds do in strengthening our community. As your official Bank of Paradise, we invest and support the lifeblood of our economy by helping in the realization of personal goals for homeownership, education, and entrepreneurial visions, which support small businesses. We make it our place to connect with persons and worthy causes, and we have been doing so for more than 30 years. Where your money goes and what your dollars empower are your choice. And we thank you for choosing us, a bank that gives where it matters the most, for you, for our community, and a happier tomorrow. The National Bank of the Virgin Islands.
Large and small corporations in the BVI can't be wrong. Bovi HR, a BVI-based integrated solution of employee timesheets, leave tracking, scheduling, employment letters, HR processes, pay slips, and tax reports, including NHI, Social Security, and Inland Revenue, will make your management of employees easier. While Bovi HR can cater to the needs of larger enterprises, it also works exceptionally well for small companies. To sign up, visit bovihr.com, that is BOVIHR.com, or call us at 342-9686.